and more specifically, a bioluminescence test. So how a bioluminescence test works is if you have active CYP, and the CYP being, again, the enzyme in your body, if it's active, the luciferin will glow. Simple as that. And if your CYP is not active, aka it's being blocked by, let's say, FCs, the luciferin will not glow. So therefore, it's a relatively simple experiment. I can do it in high school, anyone could really, but there are a lot of components to it. And I actually spent a good couple of weeks trying to get them all together. It was a real process. Because it's dangerous, right? And I would be testing to see if the mulled grapefruit juice glows or does not glow. Again, simple as that. So for my data and results. In the next slide, I'm going to show you what I looked at in a black room. So I'm either going to show you something that glowed, which would be a picture of what I saw, or something that didn't glow, which is also a picture of that I saw. So if we could please turn off the lights. Thank you. Here's a simulation of our black room. So nothing glowed. Which is unfortunate, yes, but it's not necessarily that bad. So to recap, if your CYP is being blocked, which means that the grapefruit juice is still active, the luciferin will not glow. And again, if FCs are blocked, but I unfortunately can't tell you that, although I can tell you that my results were still very accurate in terms of what I could do as a high schooler. So my two limitations are, one, the water sample got too much concentration of a buffer, which is used to make sure the pH doesn't go way too acidic or way too basic. So the buffer too much buffer was poured into the water, so I had to throw those samples out, but I still had the grapefruit juice sample, which means I still had a control and I could still look at something to test if the koji mold worked or not. The second thing that I want you to look at is this machine. Themselves to molds that are related to each other. You could even use a mold that's incredibly dangerous to humans and see if that works. I don't know. So this is the outcome of my research experiment. I found that you, in fact, cannot use koji mold to make grapefruit juice safe, but it's still important. Thank you.
Well, I'm hungry. Are you? Good news is that we have refreshments at the ticket booth. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Ms. Catherine Hawkins.
All right. College. It's a word that some students fear, but it still inspires hope. In the modern world, college is seen as the way to make it. It's the path to success, to the dream job. And yet, many struggle to pay for it. How many of you are absolutely certain that you'd be able to afford a college education without any form of financial aid? Not many of you. Now, let's compare the percent of income that would need to be spent on tuition between Erie residents and the rest of the United States. For college education at a private school, without financial aid and with an average income, would take 60% of a year's salary to provide. But for the rich, this number is halved. For the average Erie resident to send their child to a private college, it would take 30% of a yearly income. Of course, these numbers are assuming zero financial aid, which is unrealistic. However, those who have access to college is still limited to those who make the most money, due to the price of college tuition. So, college tuition for all United States citizens attending a community college or public university should be paid for by the government. Now, if you're sitting on this side of the room, I want you to stand up. You represent 53% of college graduates who are in debt, amounting to a total of $1.3 trillion in student debt throughout the United States. You can sit down now. How big of a number is 1.3 trillion? Well, in the course of 1.3 trillion seconds, all of human history has happened. Not only is this debt detrimental to students struggling to pay their bills, but also to the economy. Student loans take a large chunk out of incomes, causing young adults to be less likely to buy cars, houses, or launch entrepreneurial enterprises. Innovation and risk-taking, the pillars of an ever-growing economy, are severely limited when young adults can barely afford the price of living. Creating access to education that is not determined by income is crucial to creating a healthy society that's not split apart by income inequality. When children grow up with college-educated parents, they experience many benefits. Besides being less likely to grow up in a disadvantaged household, as adults, they're less likely to be in poverty and more likely to be educated and paid well. When they have children, their children experience those same benefits, creating a positive cycle in which education is valued. This is the cycle of economic privilege. If a child does not have college-educated parents, the likelihood of them attending college is only 29%. And for those with no access to college due to the high price, they experience none of these benefits. This creates increasing income inequality, which is unhealthy for all members of society as it's associated with high levels of crime. If we were to compare two classes with 24 students each, one being a class of the upper 25% of income in the United States, and the other being the lower 25% of income in the United States, the difference in who will enroll in college by age 19 is shocking. Of the top quarter, 19 will be in college by age 19. But of the bottom quarter, 7 will be in college by age 19. College changes the perspective of students. This form of education creates a break in which students are no longer as influenced by their parents as they were in childhood. This is coupled with the constant learning of new information and results in a total perspective shift. This means that people can make better health and personal decisions. In fact, if all adults in the United States from 1996 to 2002 had achieved a college-level education, almost 1.4 million deaths could have been avoided. This is because the lower educated are more likely to have poor health, be unable to afford healthy food, and have less access to healthcare as well as other things. College also has the ability to determine the financial success of students. Each week, the average college graduate earns $464 more than the average high school graduate. This is equal to weekly food for a family of 4, plus a ticket to Hamilton, in the back row. College has the potential to severely impact the quality of life of a person. So why does only a specific subset of the population have access to it? Access to college is quickly becoming an inherited privilege, determined by social class, which is detrimental to our society and the ideals of the United States. However, free college tuition still hasn't been a major reality in the United States. Why? Well, it wouldn't actually be free. the cost would be simply split among all tax-paying citizens. In 2012, the revenue from tuition collected from public four-year and community colleges amounted to $179 billion. However, in 2016, the federal government gave out $125.7 billion in aid to students. If this current money being invested in aid was instead given to free tuition, the remaining cost would be $53.3 billion. Assuming 138.3 million taxpayers in the United States, the average person would only have to pay $32 more each month in taxes. Okay, so there's a way to fund it. But why should the average citizen have to pay to send other people's kids to college? After all, putting yourself through college builds grit, and it teaches students to appreciate their education. Well, students will still have to work hard for the education. Free tuition means that there will be high competition to get into college. This means high schools will better educate their students, and the students will still have to work hard to even be accepted into college. The only difference is, rather than working hard at a job as a cashier, they'll be working hard at their education, resulting in better prepared workers and members of the community. I'm not advocating that everyone should go to college for free. I'm advocating that those who get into college should have it paid for. Free tuition also benefits the economy, which is good for everyone. To create a country where people can take their lives as far as they would like requires everyone to have equal access to education that is not determined by income. We cannot have a country in which only the rich have access to higher education. It is ethically and morally wrong to do so. For the future generations of children, let us make college education accessible for all. Thank you.
Wouldn't it be nice if college was free? Unfortunately, Cassie's not president yet, meaning college was very much not free. But oh hey, look at that. College just got $150 cheaper. One of our presenters today. That needs to get better. Let's clap for that. Keep that number growing quickly. In the meantime, please welcome Mr. Zach Blaze.
Good evening. My name is Zach Blaze, and I'm going to give you all a brief intro to something called Cymatics. Cymatics is the study of sound visualized, and there are several ways to make invisible sound visible. I could keep you in suspense, but I'm just going to show you some videos right away. Check it out. Basically how it works is you put propane in a long tube with a bunch of holes drilled down the middle, and then you light the propane on fire. Then you can place sounds through the tube, and the fire takes the shape of the sound waves, and different sounds will make different shapes. Now I'll show you two more ways to visualize sound. There are way more than just two other ways, but for the sake of time, I'm limiting it to two. The first is a clapping plate, and we'll talk about that later. The second one is a dish full of vodka taped to a speaker. When notes are played through the speaker, the vodka vibrates and makes different shapes depending on the sound that is played. Here we go. It's named after Ernst Cladny, who invented the cladding plate in the late 1700s. And there's an interesting and entirely made-up fake story about how he discovered its effect. He was riding his horse along the beach to practice violin, when all of a sudden his horse tripped and threw him off. Cladny was mad, which made sense. I mean, his horse never tripped like that, so he went to investigate what happened. And he found exactly what he was expecting to find. It was that new stupid thing teenagers were doing, where they would bury these perfectly square flat metal plates about half a centimeter below the sand. It sounds kind of weird, but I mean, teenagers just do weird things. I mean, just yesterday I took my school-issued iPad and I microwaved it. Well, I don't know. I didn't take the case off though, so I think my warranty is still valid. Anyway, Clyde wanted to get back at these weird teenagers and expose their plates so none of the horses would go and trip on them. So he crouched down, drilled a quick hole in the center of one of the plates, and then mounted it on a stand he had with it. Clyde knew that sound was made up of vibrations, so his plan was to just use his violin bow to rub the plates and vibrate all the sand off. Imagine his surprise when the sand did not vibrate off, but instead vibrated into complex patterns and shapes. That night, Clyde learned something. He learned that sound is not just a wave. It travels in more of a bubble, spreading out in all directions. And this sound bubble, even though it's invisible, can be made visible through different techniques like the Clyde method. Sound is made up of vibrations, so if you can see the vibrations, you can see the shape of the sound in a way. When the plate vibrated, it vibrated in the shape of a sound wave. The sand settled into the nodes of a wave, which are the parts of the wave moving the least, and was bounced off the anti-nodes, which are the biggest parts of the wave. This is a slinky, hopefully you all know that. What you probably don't know is that slinkies are not just annoyingly fragile. They're also decent models of sound waves. Great. Alright, I brought a slinky with me tonight to show you what I'm talking about, so I'd like to invite Hannah Brink to the stage and help me out. Alright, so I'm going to try to show you kind of a model of what the sound wave looks like, kind of. So yeah, don't. So what you see here, you can see how one side is moving up and down, and the other side is moving up and down. But that middle part is basically still. This is kind of what the cladding plate's doing. You have the anti-nodes right here that's bouncing sand off, and all the sand is going into the node of the wave. Alright, thank you. Wow, we worked so well together. Cladding found that higher frequency sounds made more complicated shapes and lower frequencies because higher frequencies vibrate faster and therefore have more nodes for the sand to settle into. And I found that I could get a similar effect to a cladding plate even if I didn't use a flat square metal plate. I used a trash bag and a bucket, stuff I just had around the house. The setup was simple. I put a speaker inside the bucket and then stretched the trash bag really tight over the top. I call it a cladding membrane. Then I needed an experiment. I read a lot of studies about cymatics and cladding plates, but I noticed that none of them compared the shapes made by good sounding chords to the shapes made by chords that sound bad. I know you can hear a difference, but I wonder if there's any difference in their cymatic images. That's what I tried to find out. I learned that chords that sound good are said to be consonant, and chords that sound bad are said to be dissonant. So you bet I incorporated those words into my research question. It makes me sound smart. So I used a single octave and I created a group of 24 triads, which are 3-note chords. 12 consonant triads that sound good, and 12 dissonant triads that sound bad. And I compared them using my cladding membrane. And I took pictures, so here's the result. Here are the consonant triads. The consonant triads made 4 different cymatic images. And I'm not a dancer, but I did some choreography for this part. There were 2 of image 1, 3 of image 2, 4 of image 3, 3 of image 4, and which is the most defined shape of all the consonant images. Let's move on to the dissonant triads. And again, more choreography. So the dissonant triads made 6 different cymatic images. There were 4 of image 1, 3 of image 2, 1 of image 3, 2 of image 4, there's 1 of image 5, which is the same as image 4 from the consonant group. And there was 1 of image 6, which is somewhat lopsided and weird looking, kind of like Mr. Fox. So after spending a long time looking at these images and trying to figure out some idea of what any of it means, I've come to a conclusion. Based on my study, there are several differences between dissonant cymatic images and consonant cymatic images. I can only produce 4 different consonant images, but I was able to produce 6 different dissonant images. Also, the consonant images all repeated, so I saw each one at least twice. But there were 3 dissonant images that only showed up one time. And with the exception of consonant image 4 and dissonant image 5, none of the consonant and dissonant images look very similar at all. These results have some interesting implications. If consonant and dissonant sounds make different shapes, that could provide an explanation to why they sound more or less pleasing. Scientists have theorized about different psychological reasons, but maybe there's a physical reason. The eardrum is a membrane that vibrates as it comes in contact with sound, just like my cladding membrane. Maybe dissonant sounds don't resonate as well as consonant sounds do, and as a result aren't as pleasing. But these theories can only be verified by further research. There is much more to be learned, and in order to better understand my results, the experimental group should be expanded to include multiple octaves and test hundreds of chords at varying levels of consonants. If you seminar kids get a topic next year, I used a trash bag and tested only 24 chords. Cymatics is not that hard. And if you think it's kind of interesting, go home and watch some videos about it. It's actually a lot more interesting than I made it sound, and it's turning me into some sort of Cymatics propaganda person. I guess there are worse things. Thank you all for listening, and enjoy the rest of your night.
Now hopefully you notice the difference between those presentations. If you look at your brochure, you'll see that some of our presentations are AP seminar presentations, where students aim to craft an argument solving an existing issue, like Cassie's. In AP Research, students aim to conduct their own experiment filling a gap in research, like Zach and Miranda's. You can see below each presenter's names and what class they were in this year, and get a sense of what they were challenged to do. Please put your hands together for Libby Cecina.
Hi guys, my name is Libby Cecina. My presentation is about gender bias and IT. There are 6 letters on your screen. O-L-I-V-I-A. What do they mean? What is behind them? Who clicked send and relayed all these bits and bytes to you? Do they look like this? Like this? Like this? Probably not this, but you never know. 4 letters. M-A-R-Y. To whose face have you assigned this name? Is it Mary Poppins? The Virgin Mary? Any of these faces? Well, my name is Olivia, and it's been my quest for the past 8 months to find the people that live in our minds when we read a name in an email. I wanted to start with something specific, so that I could learn from something specific. I decided to test gendered names and IT, because gender and technology have always been linked together. It was going to be so beautiful in theory, where I would send out a boatload of emails and run the results through sentiment analysis like a secret agent and get a bunch of great data. I sent out at least 30 emails, I got back 12. All of my participants were white, and either college students or employed, and it wasn't really as sneaky as I imagined because of a small detail called a consent form. But regardless, I had a plan and I followed through. I wrote 3 different versions of the same email, with the only thing that I changed being the name of the person sending the email. One was signed James, one was signed Mary, and one was signed an employee of Helix Tech Solutions, which was my fake IT company. The control email is as follows. Hello, I'm an employee of Helix Tech Solutions. We were recently able to install a new server system for the building, which should allow for faster speeds, better security, and larger storage capability. The server has been active for a week, and I have been asked to generate a report about its effectiveness. If you have had any trouble with the server, please let me know so we can investigate the problem further. Thank you for your assistance as we try to create a better work environment. Helix Tech Solutions. I sent this out to people and asked them to respond as if they were in this scenario and they had actually received this email at their work. I asked them to pretend as if this imaginary server actually did have an error and that it had caused them to log out and lose around 10 minutes of work, which made it so that could have a variety of different responses, ranging from saying that the log-off was no big deal to threatening the life of the employee, which nobody did, but I really am kind of bummed because I would have loved to read that email. I then ran my emails through a program called sentiment analysis. And what that is it basically tallies up all the positive versus negative words in each email to create a final score of what the emotion is behind the email. It's an objective way to confirm your suspicion that the thing that your friend said on Twitter last night was so rude, like, what is she even doing? I also gave the participants a survey to ask them about their satisfaction for the study they just took part in, which some of them used as a way to yell at me when I asked for additional comments, but I'm not bitter. I also learned that people are, they hate answering your email. They must be allergic to it, and they are also allergic to following directions throughout that email. And the only antidote is to yell at me in another email that takes too long to send. So I did a bunch of math, and no correlations. I found no correlations. I found no correlation between group number, so the fake IT employee gender and sentiment or satisfaction, no correlation between the gender of the participant and sentiment or satisfaction, and no correlations between same or different IT gender and participant gender and sentiment or satisfaction. So basically, what that means is that none of the variables that I tested, which were the gender of the fake IT employee, the gender of the real participant, and various combinations of the two, had any effect on the data, which is interesting. And it evened out, even though my program told me that one of my emails had a 90% positivity rating. It was probably written by one of those people that runs for fun or something. But you have to take everything that I say with a grain of salt, considering that people took the satisfaction question to mean completely different things. Some people pretended that they were still in the simulation like they were supposed to, and some people misread satisfaction as hatred for the researcher and allergy to email answering. I'm not there. But this data is absolutely not failure for me. In fact, it's probably a good thing, because it indicates that the emails that I were sent, gender didn't have any effect on the responses. The next step is to redo this experiment with a larger sample size, because I only had 6 men and 6 women, and that's a very small sample size. And to test different scenarios, to get a better picture of how the tiny assumptions we make when we interact with someone we know very little about shape our interactions. Now, does this data make me think at all that gender bias doesn't exist in the world or even in the IT field? Absolutely not. We encounter examples of gender bias all day, unfortunately, and there are so many examples that we find: the wage gap, difficulty of accessing healthcare, and so many other inequities plague our world. But the important thing is that we learn about it. We learn where it is and why it is, and that's why I'm here. Because even if this research wasn't exactly how I imagined it, stuff like this is the way that we can make it so that people's actions and not their genetics determine their life. Thank you.
So moral of that story is answer your emails, people. Do me a favor. Would you raise your hand and keep them up if you'd like to go to space? No one has arms. Okay. This presentation is for all of you who didn't raise your hands. Abhishek Bismali, Ethan Hughes, and Noah Ice.
We're leaving the Earth, the only home we've ever known, for the farthest reaches of the cosmos.
Hey, I'm Ethan Hughes.
I'm Abhishek Kumale.
And I'm Noah Ice. And here are some reasons why we think that that all manned space missions should be discontinued in America. But first, let's start with some background.
Since the beginning of time, people have looked at the stars and wondered, what's out there? Fast forward to the present, and we now have the ability to send people into space. Put them millions of miles above the common man, and have them float weightless in a metal cage that hurtles around the Earth at 22 times the speed of sound. Now, that's such a huge number. For your reference, I put a video of a jet going the speed of sound. Now imagine this tremendous speed, but 22 times faster, and that's how fast these humans are going. It's insane.
Manned space missions have done a lot to help the knowledge of humankind, from testing the effects of zero-G on the body, to breaking gender and color barriers, to creating a sense of pride for all nations involved. We have a long sending many people out into space and countless satellites, drones, and probes, some of which have gone to the far outreach of the solar system, such as Voyager 1, to some that give you TV as of now.
Since 1961, there have been 536 people that have actually gone to space. And while this doesn't seem like that many people, these people have had many scientific impacts. They've led to many scientific discoveries, such as the nature of gravity, how our planetary system works, and what is actually on other planets.
NASA is the leading frontier of space exploration in America. NASA's got millions of dollars to spend on the purpose of exploring and learning about space. Already, you've sent over 500 people into space, and for each and every one of these people, space travel has been a huge personal and national achievement.
Additionally, 200 people have also been on the ISS, or the International Space Station. This space station is the $200 billion pinnacle of manned space exploration.
But with these benefits, there are some breaking downsides.
One of the largest is the debt. Manned space missions have put us into over $400 billion of debt. And yet, we continue to shoot these humans into space to explore, but they're not really learning anything new. I mean, on average, it costs $670 million per each manned space flight. And with that kind of money, you could buy 12 of your own private islands priced at $50 million apiece. Now, this money doesn't come out of thin air. It comes from taxpayers like me and you.
Space exploration doesn't just cost people money, it also costs them other things too. Astronauts get shot up into space with possibilities of cancer, or even worse, death. They also experience some of the worst feelings imaginable: zero Gs, a fiery explosion, cold and alone in space.
NASA's budget has gone down in the recent decades, and for good reason. The U.S. debt is at $20 trillion as of now, and it will only increase exponentially as time goes on.
Now, I want to clarify that we don't hate shooting people into space, or space missions in general. We just think there's a much better way that is way cheaper and way better. Now, we have machines, which are way cheaper and way better. And if you think about it, we've sent machines to every single planet in our direct solar system, most moons and asteroids. Then we have humans, who we send to this small area between the Earth and the Moon, and we have them float around and take $1 million selfies. NASA's plan is downright unsustainable right now.
Everything I mentioned earlier, from the risk of death and disease, all goes away with robots. They can't get diseases, and the worst that can happen to them is that they break, which is much better than the alternative.
And now by this, we don't mean a total end in all manned space missions. Going to Mars has been a goal for so long. Companies such as SpaceX, Blue Origins, and Virgin Galactic have been doing better at a cheaper price. Why not put trust in the private sector?
Now, like everything great, there are some potential downsides, such as the unemployment of all astronauts across the board and those training to become an astronaut.
Becoming an astronaut is not easy. It takes years of hard work and dedication, and to the up-and-coming astronauts as of now, they might feel like they've been wasting their life on an unattainable dream.
Though if NASA and America were able to adopt our proposal and switch solely to unmanned methods of space exploration, we'd be able to use much more money towards funding these unmanned missions and increasing the capabilities of robotics in space, which would increase the number of jobs in NASA and the general workforce.
Additionally, there is one extra limitation that can be applied to this argument, and that is the loss in public support for space exploration altogether, whether it be for manned space exploration or for robotic-based exploration. Robots have had a huge influence on just everything from media just to the basic interests of children. It's no wonder why, if you ask a child, what do you want to be when you grow up, a common answer may be an astronaut. So what would be the implications of removing these public figures? It could be a loss in public support. However, this wouldn't be that hard to overcome, because if it's just a possibility, we don't know if this would happen. No one's saying it's a 100% chance. Who knows? Maybe there'll be just as much public support for robotic missions as well.
The future of space exploration lies in using unmanned methods primarily and wholly. It's time that America would step into this idea and fully move to using unmanned methods only. It's time that America moved into this future for every benefit that we need and all of the potential limitations that can be overcome. It's time that America stepped into the future and for us.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Australian Margaret.
Which doll is the bad doll? Which doll is the nice doll? And which doll is the bad doll? Which doll is the ugly doll? Why is that doll ugly?
Because he's black.
Which doll looks most like you? Yeah, which one looks like you?
And that one.
Okay.
Wow, wasn't that just heartbreaking and hard to watch? The kids in this video, as well as kids in dozens of other studies identical to this one, did not make these black or white decisions based on ideas that they were just born with. They made these decisions based on what they've heard and experienced growing up. And that's one of the major reasons for the increase in skin whitening. Now, I'm sure many of you don't know what skin whitening is, and it's okay, I didn't expect you to. We live in a cute little town called Erie, one of the safest places in Colorado where you really don't have to worry about the color of your skin. Unfortunately, the rest of the world is not like this. Skin whitening, bleaching, or toning is actually using medications, injections, and most commonly creams in an effort to lighten your complexion. This industry has been around for a long time and is currently booming in all corners of the world. For example, 77% of Nigerian women currently participate in skin bleaching, as well as 40% of Chinese women have admitted to using some sort of skin toning in the past. That's millions of people that feel upset enough with their own skin tone to alter it, and that's not okay with me. This needs to end before more men, women, and children fall victim to it, like thousands do every single year. This is why I'm proposing a worldwide ban of skin whitening products in an effort to reduce health risks, discriminatory advertisement, and the deterioration of self-image. Now, let's get a little scientific. Skin bleachers work by interfering with the skin's natural production of pigment. This means that future generations of melanin are either slowed, stopped, or destroyed altogether. These products contain a variety of dangerous ingredients such as mercury, steroids, and hydroquinone. And just so you know, hydroquinone is a dangerous chemical that causes cancer in lab rats, and people are putting it on their skin. So besides thinning, cracking, and infecting the skin bleaching also causes a condition called ochronosis. Ochronosis is where extremely dark and rough patches develop on one's skin. This tricks the user into using even more skin whitening, when in fact it just makes the condition a whole lot worse. Now further down the line, people continue to bleach, even more health risks remain in balance. Liver damage, skin cancer, and even infertility have all been reported and directly linked to a history of skin bleaching. These are so dangerous, in fact, that many of India's stores only sell skin bleaching products at night or on the weekends to avoid being caught by inspectors. If that doesn't tell you how awful these products are, I don't know what will. That's not good, and it needs to change immediately. So another reason why I think skin whiteners should be banned is the ethics of their advertising. So basically, what they have to do is they have to make people feel bad about themselves in order to get people to buy their product. Unfortunately, they can do this in a 30-second commercial or a page of a magazine. Take a look at these ads. Aren't they awful? They're currently being played on televisions, being plastered on billboards, magazines, newspapers, all around the world at this very second. These ads often depict people that are white as successful and beautiful and confident, and darker toned people as unable to get jobs, unsuccessful, and not beautiful. Ads like these play everywhere in places like India and Thailand. If you think about it, these companies are basically making money off of hurting people's feelings. They're making bank, and by bank, I mean $50 billion a year. So eliminating skin whitening products would eliminate the need to advertise them, and would therefore restore self-image for future generations, which leads perfectly into my final point, and that's that they totally destroy self-image. If the kids in that video I showed you think that they're ugly or dumb or naughty just because of the way they look at such a young age, can you really blame people for wanting to whiten their skin? I bet you that almost all of those kids up there, maybe even all of them, have had that thought cross their mind. What if I whiten my skin? And I'm sure many of them might actually try to execute it. When bad ideas are constantly flying around society, that how dark skin is undesirable in some way, it becomes true. Because once you hear something enough time, it really does become reality. The world is setting up the little kids in that video and all other darker toned men, women, and children all around the world up for failure, to a point where many feel like they have to bleach their skin in order to feel successful, confident, and just accepted in society. The world is still trying to create equality for everyone of all colors and all races, all ethnicities, and all this is doing is setting us back. I say no more before something even more evil sprouts from these practices. Use your imagination. So now some people kind of argue against my point. They say it's really unclear how far people go for beauty, and those people are absolutely correct. The internet is littered with DIY makers, how to lighten your skin naturally from home, not have to pay any money. Household ingredients like lemons and baking soda are all manipulated into whitening solutions every single day. It's really easy. So would ridding the world of factory-made skin discoloration products do anything to stop this craze? My answer is yes, it absolutely would. If we cut this problem off from the root, making it harder for companies such as Fair and Lovely, or Fair and Handsome, or Dove, or L'Oreal, make it illegal for them to manufacture and distribute these products, then it'll make it harder and harder for the public to access, to a point where this practice is really unpopular and not as heard of anymore. And maybe sometime in the future, this practice will be completely gone out of people's minds, forgotten. It'll take time, but if future generations will get to live a life feeling totally 100% confident in who they are and in their color, and not have access to these mentally and physically damaging products, then that's worth it to me, and it should be worth it to you too. Thank you. And please remember that every single one of you in here are beautiful or handsome just the way you are, and don't let any person or company tell you that you aren't. Thank you.
What's your favorite song? Mine is definitely God's Plan. Just kidding, Mr. Fox told me to say that. Speaking of that, has anyone seen Mr. Rupp's video with his daughter? Hopefully, I don't look like that when I'm older. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Miss Hannah Brink.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Hannah Brink, and I studied for my AP research project the effects that music listening and singing had on the mental and emotional well-being of adults ages 65 and older. But before I dive into the details, the nitty-gritty research details, I would like to tell you about my inspiration for this study. As a musician myself, I have always loved music, but one of the most intriguing and beautiful things about music, in my opinion, is its power to bring people together, spark change, and evoke emotions. Music, with its many abilities, can be used to help people, such as those who are losing their memory or are in a dark place emotionally. I was very fascinated by this, and it became the roots of my experiment. And fortunately for me, I was not alone in this fascination. Many studies have been conducted on the basis of music and its effects on the human brain and human emotions. The results of these studies found that through using different music mediums, such as listening, singing, or playing instruments, the cognitive functions and emotional state of the participants tested improved. Well, you're thinking, that's great, Hannah, but how does your experiment play into all of this if you're supposed to study an undiscovered area of research? Well, I knew from these studies that music was beneficial for improving the emotional states, let's call that emotional well-being, and the cognitive functions, let's call that a mental well-being. But there had been no studies conducted on the grounds of whether one music medium outperformed another at delivering these benefits. To narrow my scope, I also chose to focus on a select age group that was likely to give me more extreme results than a younger population would due to the mental impairments and emotional decline that are more common in elderly people. So my research question became, what differences exist between the effects of music listening and music singing on the mental and emotional well-being of adults ages 65 and older? To conduct this experiment, I went and worked with the residents at Balfour Senior Living Facility in Louisville, Colorado, and they were able to choose between one of the two music classes I was offering, either listening or singing. Now, to assess the mental and cognitive, the mental and emotional well-being of my participants, I used 3 different tests: perceived stress, positive affect, which essentially is a measurement of quality of life, and short-term memory. The perceived stress test asked questions, rated the amount, the frequency of how often the participants had felt a stressful experience in the last month. And it asked questions like, how often have you found that you could not cope with all that you had to do? Well, I don't know about you guys, but if you asked me, I would probably have to say very often. Thanks a lot, College Board. Anyways, as I was saying, the positive affect test measured the intensity of which the participants felt specific positive emotions, such as cheerfulness, enthusiasm, and self-love. And lastly, the short-term memory test asked questions that involved stating the date, putting the time on a clock, and also performing basic addition and subtraction through a word problem. These tests were administered before and after the period of music exposure, which lasted about 4 weeks and was about an hour per week for each class. In addition to these pre-tests and post-tests, I also used this brief survey shown here after each individual class that rated on a scale of 1 to 10 how the participants were feeling upon arriving to class that day and upon leaving. Each week in our classes, I arrived at Balfour, and we either sang or listened to songs from mainly the 1930s, 40s, and 50s, which is their era and music that they love. Each week there was about 6 to 7 new songs, which were a mix of old pop, show tunes, and hymns or folk songs. To give you an example, here are some songs from our first week of classes. Summertime, I got rhythm, I got music. I predicted that the group who sang music would improve more on the long-term emotional well-being tests and the memory test, the short-term memory test. And I predicted that the group who listened to music would improve more only on the short-term emotional well-being survey. But my results were not exactly what I expected. In my results, I found that in all the areas tested, except for positive affect, the listening group improved more than the singing group did, overall. The listening group, although I hypothesized that they would only improve in the short-term emotional well-being survey, they also surpassed the scores of the singing group in the short-term memory test and the perceived stress test. I'll show you. So, that's great, but how the heck does that apply to you? Well, here's how. Many of us have loved ones who are either struggling with the mental decline that comes with age, or they are struggling with being happy in their daily lives, or even both. And we have the power to help them. We have the power to make their lives and ours in the process more enjoyable through the power of music. The journey of this study has been very long and very difficult, I had to endure many bumps in the road to get to where I am right now. The facility was difficult to communicate with at times. The weather was horrible driving down there for classes. The participants would complain and whine about having to take the tests, and sometimes they would forget to show up altogether. But in the end, it was an extremely rewarding experience. I had the unique opportunity to go and share the beauty and power of music with people I had just met and watch as the music worked its magic. I got to witness firsthand to their improvement in their quality of life as well as memory. Please, let that inspire you to go out and spend some time with that loved one. Turn the radio on, maybe listen to some music. I guarantee that it will be worth it. Thank you.
Okay, we have one more presentation before a 6-minute intermission. An uplifting personal speech by Riley McClellan. After Riley is done, please feel free to grab a refreshment from the lobby and then hustle back to your seats. And don't forget the scholarship fund. Please welcome Riley McClellan.
Stress. If you really knew me, you would know that stress is a part of me, just as much as these hands or this hair. But isn't that true for everyone? I have that kind of stress that hits you out of nowhere, strips you from reality and hurts what's most important to you. But stress is not my worry. It's what stress does after. Stress takes over all emotions. When one's stress is applied to a situation, nothing can be accomplished. Studying gone, hard work gone, happiness gone, all of it gone. If you really knew me, you would know that this has never happened to me before. It hurts. Hurts in a way I can't explain. If you really knew me, I hide it. Hide my fear and my stress behind a smile. Maybe you can see it now. It's easier that way. It's also worse that way. My stress and my fear consume me, and I'm too afraid to change it. Change is hard for me. I can see stress win battles over me day after day. 70 on a test, stress 1, Riley 0. Miss the winning shot, stress 2, Riley 0. Mental breakdown, stress 3, Riley 0. I can ruin everything with one thought, one idea. Our mind is so powerful that what we thought we could do with stress, our mind can rip that away. Stress. Apply pressure to a situation in which one produces doubt. Doubt is questions that start with what if. What if I can't do it? What if this happens? What if this is it? I don't know, I don't know, I don't know, stop! Exactly. I don't know. Why is stress here when I don't know? What if I didn't hide it? What if the wonders of the world were wonderful? What if my heart was more powerful than my mind? What if? No. No more what if. I'm learning to shape into my own person and focus on fighting my own battles. I can see my character and my passion build into the person I am today. I came across a statement that has stuck with me, maybe even rectified me. I am. When you say I am, all doubt is eliminated from the statement, which means I am eliminates stress. I am strong, I am powerful, I am a fighter, I am smart, I am who I am meant to be. And who I am meant to be is standing in front of you proud to say I am happy. Being happy doesn't mean everything's perfect. Being happy means you've decided to look beyond the imperfections. My stress and my imperfections do not define me. If you really knew me, you would know that stress 0, Riley 1. Thank you.
through a few more presentations. Let's kick off the second half with EHS's 2018 Shark Tank winners, JT Wright, Carmen and Tina, Lee Davis, Haley Davis, and Emma Tester.
This is William Kamwabe of Malawi, of Wimbe, Malawi. Unable to go to school because of exorbitant tuition fees and hungry for an education, William started to visit his local library. After reading a book called Using Energy, William decided he was going to build a wind turbine.
After experimenting for a while, William was able to build a working wind turbine. How did he do this? He used an old and broken bike, some wood, and tubing. Now, this turbine was able to power multiple small appliances in his village, as well as irrigation.
The average library in Africa has 300 or so books, mostly outdated or donated works of literature from the US, but sometimes academic works make their way in and change the lives of people like William.
Now, William has worldwide fame, giving TED Talks about his journey and inspiring people all around the world. A boy who would never have learned his passion for engineering.
I'd like you to think about what you think William could do if he had easy connection to the internet. If the information gap was gone, would we have cured cancer? Would self-driving cars be everywhere? Would the world of art see works like never before?
The sad truth is that 4.4 billion people aren't connected to the internet. That is an unacceptable situation. To make matters worse, this population is highly rural, poor, illiterate, and female. Imagine if Erie High wasn't connected to the internet. Imagine if Erie wasn't connected to the internet. Academics, business would be a detriment. They would completely plummet. What would we do in that scenario?
Now, this project was for a public school, so we weren't able to build the infrastructure we needed to bring internet access to those without it. But we were able to ask some very important questions.
What if we could have given William one website? What would it be? What could he have accomplished?
Based on this question, we built a computer for only $20. We named it WAGS, which stands for Wikipedia, actually a good source. WAGS is essentially a computer that has an offline version of Wikipedia installed on it, so for people who don't have internet access, they could further their education.
Wikipedia is home to swaths of information. A budding scientist can learn of his idol, Stephen Hawking. A young geographer can learn of places she's never heard of. A future president can learn of those that precede them.
Now, Wikipedia does have a stigmata of inaccuracy. Stephen Colbert did get his fans to relentlessly edit the page on elephants, saying they all grew they grew 3 times their size in 6 months, and now that page is locked permanently. But a recent study found that scientific articles on Wikipedia had an average accuracy rating of 99.5%. A study in 2005 for the academic journal Nature was quoted saying, Wikipedia's academic articles came close to the level of accuracy in those in Encyclopedia Britannica, with a similar rate of serious errors.
So, we were able to build WAGS by using a Raspberry Pi Zero, a microcomputer smaller than the size of a credit card that only costs $5. This device, along with recycled monitors, keyboards, and a mouse, that would have otherwise destroyed the 41.8 million tons of e-waste generated around the world each year, allowed us to keep a cost at $20. The other $15 was for the cords and the storage that we purchased.
WAGS is able to use either a solar panel or an on-site generator as a power source and runs on about the power needed for a cell phone.
WAGS will be sent out internationally to people without internet access. For updates, a channel will be sent around to the host of the WAGS devices. It would contain a USB drive that updates information on the computer.
A more intelligent world is a more innovative world. Places around the world need to be more informed, educated, and build their communities into the future. People have been dreaming for ages, but the information gap is something that needs to be fixed, and WAGS is here to help. Thank you.
Okay, so my transition here tells me to say that, oh my gosh, the winner of tonight's scholarship could buy and the answer is 11 computers, and that's kind of late. So let's start donating to people. Speaking of computers, our next presenter has an idea to keep us a little safer online. Please welcome Grace Wolf.
If you are a high schooler and have ever used a name that was not your own on social media, can you raise your hand? 4 years ago, the Youth IGF project found that 36% of users surveyed used a name that was not their own online. Anywhere you post a comment that is publicly viewed online in social media, every post, like this one, has an identity behind it, whether or not it's the user's actual identity. Because of the power to go anonymous online, it is not always used to protect personal information. Rather, it can result in users being abusive and hateful towards one another. Online anonymity eliminates the need for users to be accountable for what they say. The situation created by this is cyberbullying. In younger ages, when cyberbullying is more prevalent, victims are 2.5 times more likely to use substances like alcohol and drugs. This leaves not only an effect on their lives, but psychological and economic hardships on society. The start to the solution is not far out of our reach. My proposal is to start requiring users to use their real names on social media through the use of universal identification card, similar to driver's license or passport. To enforce this, we could partner or create an agency like the International Corporation for Sign Names and Numbers, the same organization that issues domain names. All of this will push the goal of increasing accountability and lessening the presence of cyberbullying. Cyberbullying affects an individual even more so than traditional bullying. If someone is bullied in person, they can physically remove themselves from the situation. However, if they're bullied online, it is harder to remove themselves, especially without even greater social hardship. A study by the Public Library of Science shows that, especially among girls, cyberbullying is significantly related to mental health issues. And because of the social consequences of not being on the internet, as I mentioned before, young victims are hesitant to receive help from their parents, in fear of losing their own internet access. The longer mental development problems go untreated, the more adverse effects it has on a person's life. In cases of depression, victims lose the ability to stay concentrated, which leads to lower academic performance. And since academics are the foundation that we build our lives on, a case of cyberbullying can leave very long-lasting effects. Social media brings people together by connecting people that would not normally see each other, or even people that have never even met. This encourages the widespread of information throughout, but being able to use any display name makes the already difficult task of determining what is true or false information even harder. Social media shaped a culture around the belief to right to privacy online. However, the right to privacy has gone too far, especially in the case of cyberbullying. A California appeals court decision states that defamation, a form of cyberbullying, is not a protected form of speech. Defamation means a toxicity in social media and online, which contains a breakdown in the environment which doesn't feel friendly or healthy. If all comments were to be linked to a specific person, cyberbullying would see an immediate dramatic decrease because users would be held accountable for their actions. The widespread of false information also leads a prominent role in politics. It was especially an issue in the 2016 United States presidential election, which could have been interfered with by Russia. The Texas Law Review said that the interference is based under the disclosure of private information and distribution of news stories that fall under the umbrella of propaganda. Since factors like who an opinion comes from and what role they play in an election determine the likelihood of someone changing their own political views, requiring the use of a digital passport would reduce the risk of foreign interference in our elections. Online anonymity also leaves significant economic burdens on society. Because cyberbullying deteriorates mental health, there's a heavy reliance on psychological counselors. In Turkey, Every school has psychological counselors that are heavily meant to deal with cyberbullying. This adds more cost than needed to psychological counseling. Cybersecurity also costs each individual organization approximately $11.7 million a year, devoted to tracking down and finding users who commit crimes under a masked identity. While my proposal wouldn't eliminate the need for cybersecurity, it would certainly lower the costs. It also costs U.S. taxpayers a significant amount of money. Around the time the special counsel was appointed to investigate the Russian interference in the U.S. election, Senate Intelligence Committee costs rose $600,000 because of the difficulty of the investigation posed by identification. Though the benefits of having a confirmed identity are significant, it does not come without its flaws. Often it is argued that putting an identity online puts the user in jeopardy and leaves them unprotected from whoever may be on the internet. However, users would only be required to share their real name and nothing else. Everything else would be by the choice of the user, and privacy settings offered by social media remain unhindered. Also, it can be interpreted that the First Amendment gives us the rights of privacy online. However, because the hateful and harmful remarks are not considered free speech under the First Amendment, requiring a real name actually protects the liberties of others. My proposal would not limit what is said, just require that a name be attached to it. The system would also be at risk for people who chose to share their identifiers. However, just like you wouldn't give out something like your social security number, the accountability fostered by this would be a self-preventing system. Implementing universal IDs could greatly rescue cyberbullying, and thus improve mental health across society and alleviate the economic burden of psychological counseling, as well as curbing the increase of false information in circulation, which helps eliminate foreign interference in politics and the costs associated with it. Requiring the use of real names or universal ID is not only a viable solution, but outweighs or counteracts almost any limitation that accompanies it. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we have our second If You Really Knew Me speech of the night. I'm going to the night twice. Ms. Bella Tapia.
Throughout my life, I have lived through 43 U.S. mass shootings. I'm 15. Now, I can't name all of them. Like I said, there's 43. Some I'm probably not that aware of, maybe because I was so young, or didn't make as many headlines as others. But I can assure you, I'm 15, and I've lived through 43 mass shootings and counting. Aurora, the first mass shooting I can remember. I can remember my parents telling me about a gunman shooting up a midnight premiere of The Dark Knight Rises. I remember briefly hearing about some of the victims, and how some of them were younger than me. My sister knew someone who was supposed to go to that premiere. They didn't. Their friend canceled. Sandy Hook. I was in 5th grade. I remember my parents telling me about an elementary school getting shot up and how little kids and their teacher got killed. I remember realizing that at my school, Blackrock, in almost every classroom, there was a glass door that led straight outside. I feared that anyone would come in at any moment. Orlando. At the time, it was the largest modern mass shooting in America. I remember thinking that those people, they had found a place where they felt loved and accepted, yet they were met with hatred and violence and a big gun that night. It was the first time I remember crying over a shooting. Las Vegas. It only took 476 days for a shooting to surpass Orlando as the largest mass shooting. Or, 1 year,
3 months, and 19 days. I go to Vegas almost every year to see my grandparents who retire there to do things like travel, enjoy the weather, and go to concerts. It could have been them. Parkland, Valentine's Day. I wore a new dress that my parents had gotten me. I gave my single friends roses so that they know that they're loved. Right after school, I went to rehearsals for the music band. After that, I went to the National History Day night. I don't remember if I found out during or after school or the next day, but I remember the videos and wanting to look away, but I didn't. I couldn't. This was reality. This is reality. This is my reality. I go to the movies with my friends, who is the scared 5th grade kid looking at the door instead of my spell. I am the young woman hopeful that all people find love and acceptance, and I have families spread across the country. I'm like each of the people killed watching a movie, dancing, singing, or going to school. Each one deserves to live as much as I am living right now. You know, after every single major mass shooting in my life, I've become a little more paranoid. 7 of the 10 largest mass shootings in America happened when I was alive. It can't just be me that sees a problem with that. If you really knew me, if you really knew my generation, you know that monthly lockdown drills are normal. That there's almost a numbness when passing by an American flag half down because chances are I already know why it's down. There's been another. If you really knew my generation, you know that we've been surrounded by violence our whole lives. Violence that hits close to home. It may not be war, but it is violence. Real violence that could happen at any moment, anywhere, even when we're not prepared. Just a couple of months ago, there were threats in our community. One of my best friends told me that her brother at the middle school hid in a bathroom and started texting their mom. Since Parkland, there have been more shootings and over 200 reported cases of school shooting threats. Is this how it's going to be? Don't tell us we're too young, don't tell us we don't know anything, don't tell us it's not our time. We've lived our entire lives with mass shootings and school shootings and terrorism, and we don't know a world without them. My sister was born the year Columbine happened. A year before I was born, 9/11 happened. 2 years after my brother was born, the Virginia Tech shooting happened. We may not be experts on guns or politics, but I personally believe we have a say considering it's our lives at stake. Quote, if they're old enough to get shot, they're old enough to have an opinion on getting shot. And I don't know if you know this, but if you really knew me, if you really knew us, you know that we are capable of actual, intelligent, well-thought-out ideas and opinions. I think this night is sufficient proof of that. Believe it or not, I'm paying attention to the world and the politics around me because I know we're the future, and I don't want our future to consist of fixing problems we didn't cause. We want to make our future ours, and we're starting with that right now because I can assure you, I just want to live to see the future. I'm not going to end this pushing my political views on you or telling you straight up what I believe, although many of you might guess what I believe now. I'm just going to leave with this. I don't want to be next. I don't want my friends to be next. I don't want this school or any school to be next. I don't want anybody to become victim to mass shootings anymore. We're supposed to feel safe at schools, concerts, churches, and clubs. And if you really knew me, you'd know I don't feel safe anymore. Throughout my life, I have lived through 43 U.S. mass shootings. I can't name them all, but I can name a few. Aurora, Sandy Hook, Orlando, Las Vegas, Parkland. I'm 15. Something's got to change.
We're down to 15 minutes left. Last chance to make any donations. Meanwhile, please welcome Miss Faith Chapman.
research project. Did you know that there are many factors influencing your voting preferences, such as political affiliation, education, age, gender, ethnicity, geography, and family? You probably did know that because researchers have studied and told you all of those things. However, one thing researchers have never tested is if one of those factors could be how much a person knows about the Constitution. Have you ever thought about that? How much do you remember from the government class you took in high school? Could your memory be determining how you vote? In order to find out, I surveyed over 200 people, and I asked them to answer what different amendments are and asked them to vote on something that had to do with the amendment. Let's test what some of your answers would be. Which of the following is most related to the 13th Amendment? Is it A, abolition of slavery, B, income tax, C, rights cannot be denied because of race, or D, election of senators? The answer is A. Here are the results from the people that I tested. This was actually considered really surprising because many studies have been conducted and shown that only about 25 to 35% of people can correctly answer this question. So congrats, Erie, you're well educated. Next is the voting question. Amendment T. Shall there be an amendment to the Colorado Constitution concerning the removal of the exception to the prohibition of slavery and involuntary servitude when used as punishment for persons duly convicted of a crime? Would you vote A, yes, or B, no? Here's the results that I got. Now that we have some numbers, we can test for an association. Statistical analysis was conducted, and we got a p-value far below 0.05, which is exactly what we want. I then did statistical analysis on all the different questions that I asked and got p-values that all fell well below 0.05. This means that what people know about the Constitution determines what they vote for. Let me say that again. Your constitutional knowledge is determining how you vote. As I stated previously, most of the United States is constitutionally uneducated. On top of this, other studies have found that the teaching of civics education is on the decline in secondary schools. What this means is that voting outcomes in the future could look significantly different. Because of this study, it can also be shown that all of you guys out there can be categorized into different voting blocks or categories. This is important to know because lobbyists and organizations may be targeting voters completely wrong. We now know that the more a person knows about the 13th Amendment, the more likely that they are to want slavery and involuntary servitude to be allowed for prisoners. The more someone knows about the 15th Amendment, the more likely they are to want jobs to be given based on merit over gender and race. Another example is the Second Amendment. The more someone knows about the Second Amendment, the more likely they are to want stricter gun laws. This means that the NRA is advertising completely wrong. Instead of educating people on the Second Amendment, they'd be much more successful doing the opposite. Votes are constantly being persuaded, targeted, bought, whatever you can think of. Whether you know it or not, your vote is constantly being targeted too. The thing that I took away from this study is that education is valuable, and it determines the decisions of you and everyone around you. Your education is powerful, and it is a tool that you can use to choose how you are going to be targeted as a voter. Knowing this takes the power from the people who want you to follow their agenda and gives the power to you. Thank you.
Our next presenter is very familiar with this stage. She's a talented actress, and she has played a lead role in many of our musicals and plays. And tonight, she has a fresh take on theater in schools. Please welcome Ms. Michaela Schiller.
This is art. This is art. This is art. Now, I ask you all to take a moment, bear with me, and imagine what inappropriate art would look like. Yeah, we all probably imagine something similar. This is also art, a theatrical art. Now I ask you all to take a moment, bear with me, and imagine what inappropriate theatrical art would look like. It's incredibly different than what you imagined just a moment ago. Theatrical arts are incredibly important for teenagers today, but moreover, theatrical arts with inappropriate content are more relevant now than ever. Drama directors who produce productions deemed inappropriate at high schools should be protected from any and all forms of punishment, including termination and suspension. Now, it's difficult to define inappropriate. There are many different interpretations of inappropriate and mature content. For Broadway productions, professional critiques use the word to define the morals of a show and to create viewer age suggestions. Over the past 10 years, Broadway has experienced an extreme increase in economic profit. In the 2016-17 Broadway season, Broadway produced over $1.28 billion, and the season's top grossing musicals made up a majority of this money. Of the season's 26 most popular musicals, 62% were given a rating of inappropriate content. Now, there's a clear correlation between inappropriate productions and economic increase. The more people see top grossing and inappropriate productions, the more money is made. And this idea can be translated to all types of theater, whether they be professional, community, or school productions. Giving the director free rein over the school productions would result in an increase in money in and for the theater department as well as the school as a whole. In addition, there's a number of social and cultural benefits. The age demographics of Broadway tickets are very like the age demographics of school production tickets. Currently, middle-aged people make up a majority of the audience. They produce a stable income and are therefore able to afford Broadway tickets. There's also a growing number of younger audience members. In fact, according to a study done by the Broadway League, 1.65 million theatergoers were under the age of 18. Despite this growing number of younger audience members, the average age of a theatergoer is around 41.7 years old, and people over 50 years old made up around 38.8% of the audience. This season's top and most grossing musicals, including Hamilton, Dear Evan Hansen, and Come From Away, drew in large numbers of teenage audience members. Oh, and if you hadn't guessed, all three of them were marked with inappropriate content warning signs. Let's take a look at the wildly popular musical Hamilton. Its merchandise, cast album, libretto, and score were all plastered with inappropriate warning signs. However, teenagers bought more tickets to Hamilton than any other Broadway production in the past two most recent seasons. Now, with the given idea that the family and friends of the participant, as well as an increased adolescent and middle-aged audience will attend, the school's production will bring together the community. In addition, there's a number of ethical and moral benefits. Contemporary musical theater and theatrical arts often focus on political and controversial themes. Allowing the students to immerse themselves within these inappropriate content would allow them to deal with the emotions firsthand through a character, which would then prepare them for the real-life world issues. Let's take a look at Hamilton again. This particular musical follows founding father Alexander Hamilton and looks at both historical and modern worldwide issues. The main character faces issues such as immigration and governmental stability and credibility, which are both completely relevant today. Immersing students within worldwide topics is a huge goal for many teachers today, and for many drama teachers, the most apparent and clear way is through theatrical arts, despite possible inappropriate content. Although there are a number of benefits regarding this topic, there's one big limitation. People may find it offensive. Now, aspects such as explicit language, sexual actions, and injury and death may personally impact audience members. However, if somebody feels personally offended by the content, they have the ability to not participate in or not view the production. In addition, drama teachers are going to pick are going to pick content that is helpful rather than harmful to the students. A drama teacher is not going to pick a production with a couple of bad words to have their students go on stage and say a couple of bad words. They're going to choose a production for its morals and meanings and to give the students an insight on the real world. There are many benefits regarding the protection of drama teachers. Between economically helping the school, socially helping the community, and ethically and morally helping the students, the benefits are clear. This is art. This is art. This is art. And although they're all inappropriate, they're all wonderful forms of art, and they're extremely powerful. Drama teachers who produce productions that are deemed inappropriate at high schools should be protected from any and all forms of punishment. Thank you.
As in presenting twice last year wasn't enough, she's back at it again as a junior. Our last presenter of the night is Ms. Madeline Deacon.
My name is Madeline Deacon, and I would like to start my presentation by first directing your attention to the screen behind me. This one. Alright, now I just want to give you a few seconds to simply observe the map on the screen behind me. Okay, so now that you've had some time, I want to show you what this map actually represents. You see all those states in red? Those are states where you can legally be fired for being lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, or queer. LGBTQ. Guys. This is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, it is 2018, and this stuff is still legal? Now, many have claimed that members of the LGBTQ community can conceal their sexuality and therefore escape discrimination by using a camouflage of sorts. However, studies have shown that this may not be possible. The ability to identify someone's sexual orientation without being explicitly told, known within the LGBTQ community as gaydar. A combination of the words gay and radar is becoming increasingly more known. Now, while gaydar is said to only extend to members of the LGBTQ community, studies have shown that that may not be true. Male participants were asked to identify men in the video as either straight or gay. And while gay men were more accurate in their answers at 64%, straight men on average were still more than 50% accurate in their gaydar. Essentially, gay men are unable to hide behind the silence, and more than half of America's male population is able to discern whether or not they're gay simply by looking at them. Okay, so back to me. So after a tough couple of months, more than one mental breakdown, and a lot of contemplation about quitting AP research. Actually, can we just do a quick round of applause for my mother? Yeah, no, give it up. That poor woman, she had to literally and sometimes actually tow me and my mental breakdowns through these past few months, so thank you, Mom, I love you. Anyways, after a tough few months, I finally figured out what I wanted to study: gay people in movies. With Love, Simon having come out, no pun intended, talk of upcoming characters with upcoming gay characters in movies such as those in Deadpool 2, and even talk of Elsa being gay. Gay people in movies is a big upcoming topic, and I wanted to be a part of that narrative. So all this information on gaydar and gay people in movies led me to my big overarching research question: what traits or features shape perceptions of a character's sexuality in film? Now, my method. I sent an email to a bunch of professors at Metro State and begged them to forward a survey to their students.
asked the surveyors their age, gender, and sexuality in order to be able to analyze the ending data from those 3 perspectives. After I got all of the boring questions out of the way, I showed them 3 clips, all with characters that were unmasculine or potentially gay. The people that I focused on in particular was the Cowardly Lion from Wizard of Oz, Plato from Over Without a Cause, and Ryan from High School Musical installments. Yes. Under each clip, I said, watch the clip above. Based on this clip, do you perceive this character, and then I would specify the character, to be gay? Those answer choices were probably yes, not sure, probably no, and no opinion. Under that, I asked what characteristics helped them determine the answers to the previous question. And those answer choices were appearance, way the character walks, runs, or holds himself, lisp and or high-pitched voice, what the actor is wearing, how the character interacts with other characters. And, anybody notice the rainbow theme? Yes, not a coincidence. Okay, now for my results. So if you remember, I told you that I asked each participant their age, gender, and sexuality in order to be able to analyze the data from those 3 perspectives. I'll do the same tonight. Okay, so I got 41 responses, and that may seem like a low number, but I was absolutely jumping for joy that I managed to get any participants to answer my survey at all. So, yay! However, disclaimer, I wasn't able to get a lot of variety in my survey, so some groups were not statistically significant to my data, specifically those over the age of 36 and any genders besides the 2 most common ones. Okay, so behind me are the raw results from my survey on age and the average number of people who answered each question. So I'm just going to tell you what this means from the perspective of my research question. My results on age indicate that, predominantly, younger generations rely on stereotypes, particularly what the character is wearing, how the character interacts with other characters, and how the character walks, runs, or holds himself. Older generations perhaps require a more definitive identification of sexuality, preferably one that states the sexuality explicitly. Now, for gender. In general, women were more likely than men to list no opinion when asked to identify a character's sexuality. Now, this may indicate one of 2 things. Women are generally uncomfortable with identifying a character's sexuality on screen, or they do not find a character's sexuality to be an important aspect of the story. Men said probably yes more often than women, most commonly observing 3 main characteristics: how the character interacted with other characters, the character's appearance, and what the character is wearing. Now, these results may indicate that men judge how a man acts around his own gender in order to identify that man's sexuality. By extension, they may apply how they would feel if they were being treated that way by another man. So, for example, say Mikey is in a room full of men, okay, and he sees Randy touch Jake's arm and feels that if he were Jake, he would feel uncomfortable by the action, and therefore concludes that the action may have homosexual undertones. Okay, and it appears that men do the same for characters on a screen. Okay, finally, sexuality, and we're almost done, guys, so I need you to hang with me. So this category was actually the most fascinating to me. There was no significant difference between those who identify as heterosexual and those who do not. Now, it may not look like that on the graphs behind me, but the percentages match up. So, all of the sexualities in my survey had the same percentage that the character was or was not gay, and they all listed basically the same characteristics that helped them determine that answer. Isn't that crazy? I mean, you would think of all the categories, this one would have the most deviation, but it didn't. Isn't that cool? Look, society puts so much emphasis on how different we all are, but maybe we're more alike than we think. Okay, so I just threw a bunch of information at you, and for that I apologize, but here's what my data actually means. Overall, it is important for filmmakers to understand their audience and who it may contain before considering how to display gay character on screen. With the emerging culture of gay representation in movies, research such as mine is critically important to understand and spread sexuality and its implications. Now, I would like to conclude my presentation by once again showing you this map. Look, the LGBTQ community has made huge strides in the past few years, but we as a society and as a nation are not there yet. And as long as there are still red states, we will not get there. So tonight, I would just like to leave you with this question. What are you going to do to help us get there? Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for coming. Before I leave, I want to say thank you to our custodial staff who is staying here late tonight. Mr. Balsacina up in the booth. Mrs. Janae Berg for microphone assistance. Mr. Graham Berg and the Erie Tiger Network for filming tonight. Mrs. Allen and Dr. Kim Stalcup for being crowd control for all of you tonight. And to all of our presenters who have presented tonight. I'd also like to thank Ms. Curtis, Ms. Shipley, Ms. Genter, Mr. Fox, and Ray Bellows. All right, let's give away our scholarship money, shall we? I have all the names here, if I can get Ms. Curtis. Oh, here we go. Oh, the winner is Olivia Stacina. Thank you so much for your generosity tonight and for watching. Please come in and come back next year. Have a great night.